Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Million Dollar Media. I'm your host Max Kellerhaus, and today we are going to be reviewing Skeleton Crew, the newest in the Star Wars pantheon of just anthology stories. And this one is about a bunch of kids find a lost starship, and they accidentally press the start button. They just get shot off into somewhere in the galaxy, and they have to find their way back home. Now, I will admit, going into this show, I didn't have that much faith in it. I was hearing way before any trailers were even released that there was no real faith in the show, and no one knew what was going to happen with the show, if people were going to like it, if people were going to hate it. And with Star Wars fans, it's very volatile, and who knows if they're going to like it or love it one day. So I went in kind of just having a bar set at neutral, just okay, let's see what they have for us and if I like it or not. And honestly, this is a really fun show. Do I think it's better than Andor or the first two seasons of The Mandalorian? No. But I do think it's a lot better than The Acolyte, Ahsoka, Book of Boba Fett, Obi-Wan. I think it's a lot better than those just because, first and foremost, it's just its own story. It doesn't have any real connections to any of the outside Star Wars stuff. Honestly, if this didn't have the Star Wars name to it and it was just its own thing, the quality of the show would change no different from my opinion. This is a show that if you're not even a Star Wars fan, you could just go into this show, watch it, enjoy it, have fun with it, and it's a show for all ages. It's just pure family fun. Putting myself into that mindset of just being a kid again and watching the show and just enjoying Star Wars and just going on an adventure, I think this show nails it. And I think it's really because the main cast of characters really bring it. I think it's really rare, especially within Star Wars, for kid characters to be done right. A lot of the times they're either the lone wolf and cub thing, or they're just straight up annoying. And that's also been a problem because of bullying in the past in the Star Wars community. So going into the show, I was also really worried that they were going to be focusing entirely on a kid's plot. But I think what they do is that they just make the kids. They're not these chosen ones that are supposed to be characters down the line. No, these are just kids who get lost in space and have to find their way back home. And yeah, that's what I really liked about the show. I think Wim as a main character is really good. I saw a lot of myself in Wim at some points. I really like that character, especially being a suburban kid, just wanting to do more than what was given to me in life, and thinking of grander stories outside in the horizon. It's like every kid who watched Star Wars and wanted to be a Jedi. That's Wim. He is that character. A lot of the things that happen in the show happen because of him, but you never blame him at any point. I think that's a really rare thing for a show to do, especially kids doing dumb stuff and being why did that kid do that? Why this? Why that? You understand why he's I'm going to push that button. It makes sense. And I think the main actor who plays that character does really well. The other kids, too, I really like Fern. She's a really fun character that has her own little arc. She's very tough. And also the captain, which I thought was real, a fun Goonies kind of angle, even though I've never seen Goonies. But this show just screams Amblin. Hell, they have Star Wars speeder bikes that are bikes that are very close to just bikes that you would have at home right now if you have if you ever had a bike growing up. They would have the little bells on them. I thought that was really funny. They're these speeder bikes known for the Forest Moon of Endor, now just being driven on the sidewalk of a suburb. And Fern is the one who has all the mods and modifications done to her bike, and then suddenly becomes captain of her own ship. And her having this brave front and having that not crumble but being softened to allow other people in. I thought that actress did a really good job. I really like KB. Very cute, fun character. It's kind of interesting to see a Lobot version of a kid. It's also kind of what's going on there with modifying your kid like that. Think of it like a kid who has diabetes and has to inject insulin. It's kind of more like that, just a little bit more hardcore with inject this into my brain. But I thought she was a fun character who at first is very robotic, but then learns to kind of loosen up and have a voice of her own. But I think the absolute scene stealer is Neil. I was really worried because I'm not a big fan of the overweight sidekick character, especially within like family films, because I usually feel like that's unfortunate for the kid to be made fun of like that. But to make the kid like a literal elephant, I don't know the alien race in Star Wars, so I don't know what the technical name is. But to make him an alien kind of takes away that whole angle of being made fun of. So thank God for the kid there. And it's also covered in prosthetics and CG, so that's fine. But I thought he was just an overall scene stealer in that, like, he's so sweet. He's just a nice guy. He stands up for his friends and fights off robots and pirates and shoots down, like, giant pirate ships. I was like, hell yeah, Neil. And I think all these kids are just a good group and dynamic that if they were to continue on with this show, I don't think you need like a season 2. But if you were to see like grown up versions of these characters, like way down the line, I'd be interested in that. I think the show is just a great way to show what it's like to be a kid in the Star Wars galaxy. I mean, the one person that's getting the headline of this show because he's the adult and whole show was built around him being cast was Jude Law as John Nanawwood. Jod Nanawwood. Hold on. Jod Nanawwood. I'm just going to call him Jude Law or Silvo because he has a lot of names in the show, like Crimson Jack or something like that. And I think as like a Star Wars equivalent to like your Lon John Silver or like your Captain Hook kind of like antagonist because this show is heavily inspired by classic like Treasure Island, Treasure Planet even. Peter Pan, there's a little bit of elements in there, especially with like the overall kid element of like kids going off to a galaxy far, far away. This is a pirate show first, Star Wars second. So there's a lot more pirate like themes and like connections that you can find. Like hell, the Jude Law's character as the captain is Captain Silvo, and the droid that they find is SM-33, aka. So like there's a lot of really fun pirate connections there. I think the SM-33 is probably my favorite one. But back to Jude Law, like I really like his character because in the classic John Silver kind of character style, like you trust him at first, but you know that something's up with this guy, that he's not gonna like keep his word, and at the very end he kind of turns on these kids because he is a pirate. Jude Law plays up that version very well, but what I really like is that this character has the Force, which I found to be really interesting, and that like it just shows that like, oh yeah, they're just Force sensitive people just roaming the galaxy, and some went into hiding and some decided, you know what, I'm gonna be a pirate and just use this power that I have over people. Like the only thing that he's only really shown to do is just bring things to him and push things away. He's not like Darth Vadering out in here, but he's still very opposing because he can still wield a lightsaber if he wanted to. And yeah, like he is a very intimidating villain and scary. Like Jude Law is scary in the show at some points, especially when it's like in the context of threatening to kill these children's parents if they don't comply. Like that's messed up. And I think he plays it very well, and like he's very terrifying and he's gripping to watch. Like every time he's on scene, he just steals the show in a really interesting way because you don't know what he's gonna do. Like they explain a little bit of like who he is, because at first I thought, okay, he's a pirate and he has the Force. I thought they were gonna connect it into what they said in Obi-Wan, where there's people faking being Jedi and they use magnets to bring things to them. But no, he was a Padawan who he was found, and then just kind of, once that all went up, he just kind of found his way towards piracy, which I thought, yeah, I mean, that would happen. But yeah, I think Jude Law just portrayed that pain in this character, and I think they also said in behind the scenes, but like, he is a character who just doesn't know where to be in the galaxy, so he's like, maybe I'll be a Jedi. That didn't work. Maybe I'll be a pirate. That seems to be working, until it's not at some points. So he's like, maybe I'll just take care of these kids. Nah. I know, I think we talked about it a little bit, but I think just in my ever-growing list of favorite droids in Star Wars, SM-33 has got to be up there for me. Nick Frost just nails the voice. He is every pirate cliche to the max. He just nails it, and he just makes this really fun character. Like, I like the droid has a peg leg. He's got these bracers, and he's just very intimidating and gets the kids out of a lot of tricky situations. But I thought the design was really fun too. Like his skull-looking droid. I was worried going in, how are they going to explain all these adult people risking their lives for these kids to get them back home, especially with pirates involved. And I was worried, like, okay, how are they going to explain all this stuff logically? And I think incorporating the idea that, oh yeah, the planet these kids are from is like El Dorado, and it's this long-lost civilization. So every time these kids are like, we're from Ad-Aden, they're like, no, you're not. That's a fairy tale. No way. And then that's the reason why this adventure starts. It's like a kid coming up to you and saying, like, hey, I need help back home to El Dorado. You're like, what? I thought that was a really fun way to make the show unique and interesting, because while everybody's like trying to find out what Ad-Aden is, they're just like, oh yeah, it's just this boring suburb that I live in. I was like, it's not that special. Yeah, I just thought that was a really fun spin on your treasure planets, your Goonies, your ETs, your fun Amblin stories, all these like kid adventure things. It actually puts a fun spin on that in a very Star Wars way that makes sense within the overall galaxy. But yeah, I just really like that story arc. And yeah, I mean, there's not much else I want to really go into. I highly recommend the show. If you have a Disney Plus, give it a watch. If you like Star Wars, definitely give it a watch. For people who aren't into Star Wars, I would highly recommend this show just because it's not connected to anything else. And you could just hop in, enjoy it, and if you like it, you can watch other stuff. But this is its own thing. I personally like Star Wars shows that pick a tone and stick to it. With Andor, it's a spy thriller and it sticks to it. With the first couple seasons of Mandalorian, it was like this gunslinger western style Star Wars show, and I think it nailed that. I also gotta say, just before we wrap this up, Jon Watts gets a bad rap. I mean, I know that new film he made, Wolves, wasn't great, but I really enjoyed a lot of his other stuff. I really enjoyed his Spider-Man trilogy. I mean, whenever we talk about those Spider-Man movies, I'll definitely explain how much I love those. But I also really liked his early work with, like, Clown. I haven't seen Cop Car yet, but I've heard only good things of it. And with this show, he just nails the early 80s vibe from those shows. Like, with Spider-Man trilogy, he nailed, like, the John Hughes style coming-of-age story. With this, he nails the Amblin Entertainment feel. I think he just knows what worked about those original movies and that original style and adapting it to whatever IP he's working on. It was great with Marvel, and it's now great with Star Wars. And yeah, I think he gets a bad rap just online. I mean, I'm off Twitter now. Screw Twitter. I'm done. I'm done with Twitter. Or X, whatever you want to call it. And yeah, I don't have to worry about filmed Twitter anymore. Yeah, I just think that he's actually a good director. I don't really care what anybody else to say is. I just think he's an overall really good creative vision in Hollywood, and I want to see him perhaps do more things outside of these big IPs. But everything that he's done in these big IPs, I really enjoyed. So yeah, definitely check out Skeleton Crew. It's a really fun show. If you like what I had to say in this video, hit that like button. If you want to hear more from us, especially with our Star Spangled Spectacular coming up, hit that subscribe button. If you like what I had to say and you think other people will enjoy, hit that share button. Share with your friends, your family, anyone really. I hope you all have a good day. Bye.